Hello, everyone. We have an interesting session today. We are meeting with Shyam Kalita. He is 2014 Pilani Mechanical Graduate and is also one of the co-founders of Swift. Talking about Swift, so Swift is a commerce enablement platform that serves businesses across checkouts, order fulfillment, and also the order management. Sham had an interesting journey. He started his career with product management and also was a consultant across different industries in US and India. So we'll also deep dive into his journey of how he made the shift and also how BITS contributed to his whole startup journey. Welcome, Sham.
Thanks, Roshni, for having me over.
So, Sham, like we said in the introduction itself, we would love to know how BITS actually helped you in your startup journey. Maybe the clubs and departments, or BITS has this culture of entrepreneurship. So we would like to, delve into that with the start.
Yeah, I think it's been close to almost a decade since I graduated, and I personally feel there's no other institution more well placed to produce entrepreneurs than BITS, right? And it's part of the curriculum, part of the way the whole processes are laid out. Departments is just one part to it. The fact that you don't have you don't go to college to find the willpower to get up and go and study and still follow through. So it's a process which starts early in your life. It teaches you a lot of things which you typically don't realize the value at that point in time, but once you're in your corporate career and then post your entrepreneurial journey, these things come back and hit. But yeah, I think departments is a way. Departments and clubs obviously make a lot of sense. I was part of the sponsorship team at Bossum is the sports festival, and I think very at that point it was still, I would say, not at comparable to what Oasis was doing or an Apogee was doing. But I think under a lot of limitations, we were still able to bring in really big deals at that point in time, which sort of inculcated a trait of being audacious. I think that's something that a lot of these clubs taught. But then we did, along with a couple of my friends back in college, we did TEDx for the first time in BITS Pilani campus, and then obviously I had a stint as the placement coordinator. So that's a different experience altogether, managing a team of 40 people to ensure 400 plus people get placed in a batch. You're doing a lot of things that is sometimes overwhelming, but then that's what BITS teaches you to how do you perform under tremendous pressure without probably having all the resources at your utilization. You are not carrying the brand of an IIT where people are convinced to come, right? You still have to figure out and fight. In fact, I think so. There was a point that in my semester we had the centralized placement. So a lot of pitching work. We understood how to sell. Right, selling is very core to any founder when it comes to entrepreneurship. So I think these are things that definitely, if it was not for BITS, I would have not learned it, or it would not have been ingrained into my daily lifestyle.
Got it. And it seems like you have worn multiple hats and bits, including, a TEDx committee and then, placement coordinator and also sports. So I think, it is amalgamation of all the activities you did in bits. You said very interesting thing that, bits has this culture of encouraging the entrepreneurship in you. And
Mhm.
in fact, recently they have also allowed students to take a 1 year gap so that they can pursue their startup. When you
Yeah.
were in BITS, did you have any startup idea, or maybe I think there was a new venture course also during your time
Yes.
NVC. So did you have any startup idea, or and also how did you meet your co-founders? Because are they also BITSians, or did you meet them outside the campus?
Yeah, so I think entrepreneurship is something which is not necessarily only if you do a startup, it comes out. There are a lot of smaller stints of projects to being part of programs within a department where you can explore the flavor of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is something like owning a part of a project and delivering it with a satisfiable outcome, right? And I personally felt all these stints that I did it had its own flavors. I was not part of CEL, I think, so that's the entrepreneurship cell. But I had friends, so I kept hearing what other people did. One good part, obviously, and at what BITSA is doing, it allows us to talk to people who have graduated, what they've done in life. So that continuous learning of what's happening outside of campus when you are in campus, it opens your mind and it allows you to think beyond just what's happening in your campus, right? So that's there. So ideas kept coming. Well, actually, I had a lot of ideas that wanted to try, but obviously at that point, risk is something we still not formally. It was not accepted. You can go ahead and start up right off the bat. But
Right.
I Prayas, who's my other co-founder, Debanshu. So we are a fully Bitsian co-founding team. So all three of us were Wingies actually. So
Oh, okay, great.
oh, known them for more than a decade now. So it it makes entrepreneurship life much easier when you know people, and because you're Bitsians, you always have this inner trust in each other to help you out through difficult times. But I personally felt that entrepreneurship came naturally. It's not like I had to fight my way through it, because what bits during the journey, along with the peers and the alums and the the founders, the co-founders that I've had, it's just very clear that it was a building block which was leading to a final outcome, which was the journey of entrepreneurship.
Got it. And did you meet your other co-founders, as in you decided about this company while you were in BITS? Maybe, the seed was born when you were in BITS, or you maybe met again and then started the startup. How did it start?
Yeah, I think there was no idea of doing a startup at that point when I was graduating. I had known these guys. One of our co-founders is very enthused in the entrepreneurship space, so he's always worked at startups. So he's worked at Urban Ladder, Flipkart, and but I chose a more corporate kind of a setup. I went into consulting. Then I went into a multinational to do my product management, work in the product management function. But it's only once I worked in these setups that I realized that there's more that I could achieve in a startup setup. And obviously, the idea came to me first, and then I started discussing it with my friends. So we were in touch. It's not like we weren't in touch. I discussed, and as we were brainstorming, they got convinced. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Some things are happening in different parts of the world. Similar concepts can be applied in the Indian ecosystem, and that's where we segue and we decided to quit and then start this uh, team. And then now, fortunately, and by God's grace, we are where we are today.
Got it. And I think it's great to have great wingies around you. So people who are listening, if you have wonderful wingies, do not lose touch with them, because you can see example of Sham, how he connected with his Bitsian wingies again, and now his startup is also full of Bitsians, and co-founders are all Bitsians. So Sham, I went through your site, and it's an interesting thing you are doing. I think especially during COVID time, this idea might have blown people's mind that hey, we need order fulfillment and management within our organization. And I went through your site, I could see some of my batchmates who are also having their own startup, like Biko and Bayfikr. They're also your partners in this. So if you could talk more about your company and how you are growing it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so absolutely. I think once a bits in forever bits in. So we'll always love to help bits in companies. And you mentioned just the tip of the iceberg. Biko and Bayfigure are doing wonderful, but we've been helping a lot of bits in companies, get through past that initial phase. But coming back to Swift, what we do here is we started with the focus on order fulfillment back in when I was in the US. One thing struck me very clearly, that online commerce is going to just explode in India. And at that point, when I was consulting, also we did a survey where we realized there are about 70 million businesses in India. Like that's a lot of businesses. And what is going to happen, even evidently, is that everyone's going to move online, right? Because it reduces your cost a lot. It helps you discover your customers much more easy in easier fashion. So that's the gut feeling and the research that backed it up. So we decided, yes, let's target this segment. So there are three legs to any e-commerce to survive. There's, you need to have a digital identity, you need to be able to accept payments, and then the last bit, which is the fulfillment of the order. Let's say you have placed an order, now somebody has to deliver it.
Right.
So we said, let's start with the most difficult one, and that's what even Flipkart did in the early days. They bought a company known as eCart,
Right.
and we started working on this. And obviously this idea saw fruition in the early days. We started getting early customers, and then COVID hit, bang, and things went silent for 3 months. And obviously we had to rejig the product in a way that it could help businesses grow faster. And what happened, I would say in retrospective, is that a lot of businesses started coming online because of the COVID situation, right? So people were not going to shops, not buying, everything was online purchase. So it just accelerated our growth, and we started double downing on seeing how can I set up tools and products that can help businesses go online. So fulfillment was just one part of it, but there's a lot of other products that we built technologies around payment processing. We built a whole stack around how do you improve conversions of orders that when people are coming to your website. So a lot of activities around enabling e-commerce to thrive, right? And my bet, and because I've seen this in the US, is this decade is going to belong to e-commerce. So we have seen a lot of fintech, agri-tech, and all these things go up. But my personal belief is, from what e-commerce is going to do, it's going to be a very pivotal part to India's GDP growth story, right? So if there are founders out there who are thinking about e-commerce, continue pursuing. It's a competitive space because it's not that easy to master or get market share. But personally, I feel if if you have an idea which can change the way e-commerce works, I think it's worthwhile trying doing it. Even if you end up failing, it's okay, because of the failure, from failures you learn what to do to
Right.
eventually land the success.
Yeah, and Sham, it's commendable. When COVID came, I think most of the startups, they kind of, lost their hope, and you actually took it up as a, challenge, and it accelerated your growth. So that's really commendable. And I'm sure there were challenges because during COVID times, delivery was, I think delivery started, e-commerce was accelerated, but there were sure many challenges in delivery. They were not allowed to, cross certain borders. I think intrastate and interstate delivery were very difficult. So, yeah, hats off to you for, taking it up as a challenge and, overcoming it to grow the company. In general, do you have any mantra for, for Swift as well as your personal life on, how you deal with challenges? Um, we would like to hear how you actually dealt with those challenges and how you plan to deal with.
Yeah, I think one of my seniors back in college, actually, he helped me put the words together for Bossum's motto, which is grits, guts, glory. And I personally feel that I relate to that a lot. And if you don't have the grit and the gut, you can't get the glory, right? So it's all about hard work. It's about following your instinct. And instinct is not about just you sleeping one day looking at Instagram reels and you get an instinct. Instinct comes from all the research, the hard work, the networking, the constant hunger to acquire more knowledge. We are in an era where knowledge is key to anything that you want to do. It's not the industrial age we are in, right, where you have to build something, then only things work out. But if you are able to absorb knowledge, I think that's the initial start for anyone who wants to do entrepreneurship. And coming back, I think so that's the motto with which I live. And obviously another key part is whatever you do to leave behind a legacy. Means give your best. Don't do things just for the heck of doing it, right? If you're trying to be in entrepreneurship or trying to start something, do it because you want to give your best, or you want to be the best in the market, not because you saw there is some idea VCs might fund. A wrong perception for a lot of founders, and why a lot of startups do crash and burn, is because they think raising capital is the end goal. Raising capital is the starting point. right? The journey post that is where it gets very interesting. And the hardship actually starts setting up a team, going from one 2-member organization to going to all the way to 50, 60, 100 and thousands. It's a continuous battle, but the battle becomes very exciting, interesting, and obviously VCs are there to drive you through this journey. But one perception I felt very important, and a lot of people lose that mantra when they're working, is VC capital comes, you don't need to work hard to achieve your goals. It's the other way around, where you continuously keep pumping more effort because you've got VC capital.
Yeah, you have to justify every penny you got from the VC, because
Yeah.
now their stake is also into your company. True. I think that's very important factor you mentioned. I have a question around, what is the future of Swift? How do you want to, basically, let's break it down into two. Uh, what are your expansion plans? Do you want to, go into different countries? And the second is, you're seeing, AI sweeping into every platform, every tech. How is currently AI, built in Swift, and with Chat GPT? I know Chat GPT is more into, your content side, but how is AI, playing role in Swift? So, if you have any
Yeah.
plans.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll reply to the first part, which is what's the plan for the future of Swift. And I think last 2 years has been explosive in terms of growth for us. We've just from a head count, we were just 7 people, I think so, 18, 20 months back. Now we are close to about 60 people. So grown in a way that I never imagined we'll grow. Our revenues have grown past a point where overall we are close to about a 50 crore company at this point in time. And where do we go from here? So a lot of people get absorbed with the fact that they want to be unicorns and all. I personally feel, and I've been very critical of this, even in the culture that we've tried to set. We don't want to be unicorn. We don't want to be soon to be unicorn or a decacorn. What we want to do is revenue milestones. Today we are at 50 crores. How do I get to 100 crores? How do I get to 1,000 crores? Then valuation is just a number associated to that, right? Once you hit revenue, and I think because of the situation of what the market is going through, I think people need to get out of the mindset of valuations and focus on revenue. Revenue is what will make you survive. Even if your valuations are very big and you don't have revenue, there's no point, there's no survival going to happen there. So that's the mindset with which we are building Swift with. So goal is to keep multiplying our revenues and year on year. But at the same time, there's a lot we are doing on the product side. And coming to the part of AI, I think so is a very fancy word. Everyone tries to use it.
Right.
We don't do AI. We do a lot of machine learning, which is a step prior to AI. And one of the key parts to machine learning or anything you're building on machine learning is data. So we are a very big data science team, data organization that we have grown internally. The quantum of data, just imagine the order information that's flowing through, who is buying what, how's the orders getting placed, how the order gets fulfilled, who is fulfilling it. There's so much data that we are tracking and we are absorbing as we are growing. There's so many products we are able to build. We are able to provide customers being sellers in this case, idea about where all they can do their marketing, right? So if let's say a sari maker, she's selling in just Tamil Nadu, I'm able to tell her that, hey, your product also sells in Bihar, right? Because of the whole pattern, e-commerce pattern, I'm able to identify there. So a lot of data related work and machine learning helps in that. We have been able to build that into our day-to-day business that we drive. But I think our journey on ML will continue. AI, I think so still we are way far away, but I personally use Chat GPT a lot. It helps me put
Yeah.
my thoughts together. So I have seen a couple of my product managers start using Chat GPT to write their product requirements document.
Oh,
So
is
it,
it?
it
Okay.
it just, you need to understand one thing with AI. And what ChatGPT has done is some of the roles will become obsolete in the years to come,
Correct.
and you don't focus on what is a commodity anymore. So writing is not a commodity. The quality of writing is the commodity, right? And writing a long essay. Earlier, people used to charge you by words and say, hey, I'll pay you 5 rupees per word to write a blog. Now it's not about the blog anymore, and ChatGPT can throw you a blog. It's how good a blog it is, right? And you, for every profession that's going to be impacted by what ChatGPT is trying to do, I personally feel focus on the delta on top of ChatGPT than focusing on what's already ChatGPT has done. So that will make you indispensable, because over the years that's going to come a lot of functions, specifically the ones where there is a lot of writing, mundane, repetitive tasks, right? Those will go for a toss. I personally believe that's going to happen, and the it's already started. Look at the way MNCs are like laying off people,
Yeah,
right?
right,
So that's a point for worry for professions. But I personally believe that we go through these inflection points in cyclical manners,
right.
and people figure out a way to evolve and adopt new skill sets which will help them in their growth career.
Right. And I could understand that, from your conversation that machine learning is backbone of Swift because Indian market is very unorganized. Uh, I'm not sure if we are dealing with, manual entries also, but many of the, especially the retailers and, your distributors, they actually still prefer writing the, products and details. So, if I'm not wrong, actually your ML model is reading those scripts, is it?
So what you just mentioned comes under computer vision. So
Okay.
that's a little bit of a difference. But just to give you an idea, what we do under the likes of machine learning. So let's say a consumer is placing an order and they write an address, right? A lot of times people write bogus addresses.
Right.
मंदिर के पीछे आके deliver कर देना, call कर देना, right? Things like that we have seen.
Right.
So what happens? There's a lot of cost that goes in delivering products.
Hmm.
So the delivery boy is running a milk run where he's supposed to deliver it, and he sees this kind of an address. He's not going to make an effort to deliver it because there's no way to geocode it and say, oh, this is the coordinates where I need to reach.
Right.
So validating addresses is a key product that we've built just using ML and data. And now what we are able to do before even the order is dispatched, I'm able to tell my merchants, hey, see, these are orders where delivery issues will come up,
Wow.
and we would recommend you that you please call up the customer, or this is the recommended address that we are saying. Simple things like pin code, right? A lot of Indian logistics is based on pin code systems.
Hmm.
So if I change the last two digits, you can probably land in a different city altogether,
Correct.
right? And it so happens that people are writing fast. I live in a pin code 560102, and that 0 and 1 just switches, right? I probably now in a different Mysore city, and the order has come to Mysore. It's not going to get delivered to Bangalore. It's going to go back to the origin from where it was shipped. And this is just cost. There's fuel burned. There's money lost by merchant. There's so much inefficiencies that we are able to solve today because of data and machine learning.
Wow. Okay. I got the use case now. Got it. Okay. And we have touched on, macroeconomic conditions going in the world right now, various times in our conversation. Many startups, which are emerging now, the growing startup, and also, some of the Bitsians who aim to have their own startup some point of the time. Do you have any advice for them? Because, like you said, it's a cyclic thing, it will come and go. But I think in your entrepreneurship journey, you will have this cycle at least twice, going by the, past experience. Do you have any advices for upcoming entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think I'll break my advice in two parts. One is people who are starting up and people who have already started. For people who are starting up, don't go after valuations that you've seen, because they've been growing up listening to news about, okay, this guy got so much money and they raised
Especially Shark
capital.
Tank India.
Yeah, I think a lot of media has not done justice to entrepreneurship. I'll be very honest. You don't get to see the hard work that goes behind to reach that point. But definitely, I feel one key point for any person who's trying to start a company, they need to keep 18 months of capital handy at any point in time, right? You want to survive, you need to have 18 months of runway with you. Otherwise it's very difficult, because from your, even if you're raising capital takes anything between 6 to 8 months to actually for the money to hit the bank. So if you don't have any point 18 months of runway, you are always thinking about how will I survive. And when you're thinking about how you survive, you will not be able to do the innovation for which you actually started, right? And that's very key. Founders typically, if you're not able to think this properly, you end up having this cash crunch. And then sometimes people are lucky, they are able to raise capital fast but get bad deals in those scenarios. It's very important you always think about that. Second point for startups, for guys starting up soon, uh, especially in India, single founder startups are very difficult to run because of the iota of compliance and the amount of pressure that each function delivers. I would always recommend have at least two people in the co-founding team, because it just makes life much more easier. Serial entrepreneurs can do that because they've got the ideas, they are able to hire, right? They've got past experiences. But new time entrepreneurs should definitely focus on having at least two founders on the team so that they can distribute the load, right? If you see the journey of any founder, it's more like a wave. There's a crest and trough that you go through. And though people talk a lot about the peaks, people don't talk about the trough through which you go and where you hit a low point, right? So that's where you need another co-founder who can help you, sort of tackle it and then push past and just go through it. So that's my 2 cents for people who are starting up. People who have started up already are in this journey. Be frugal. Don't spend unnecessary money. Marketing is the last function you should overdo. You should spend on content and brand, not on your performance marketing. A lot of people make this key, let's get growth from spending a lot of money on your ads, Google ads and Facebook ads, right? It'll give you the growth in the first few months, but eventually it will burn out. And that's a big problem that a lot of brands today are being questioned. Even if you talk about some of the brands that have come on Shark Tank, they've had very high CAC, which is customer acquisition cost. So my personal 2 cents is be very frugal when it comes to spending money. It's difficult, obviously more difficult than done, said than done, but I think so that's the only thing. Survival, key to survival. I can't lecture you on ideas and how to implement that every founder's journey, but money, how you spend money is a key point on how you will end up. And I think marketing has its time when it comes. You don't have to spend money on day one. Your marketing journey starts once you have a sort of early signs of product market fit. So to be very honest, till date we've never done zero spend on marketing. So all our revenue is through referral sales, through a very lean sales team that we've built. And that's the whole point, right? You can achieve until unless you're looking at consumer growth, which depends a lot on marketing function. But I personally feel that get to the point where people are accepting of your product before you start investing in marketing. Brand building, yes, you should write content, people should be able to read about you, right? But for us, what's worked is we've been very frugal with that. And that's primarily one reason why, even though all this funding winter is going along and we've been fortunately not affected by it, we are continuing to see growth independent of what's happening from the market scenario standpoint.
Got it. I think we have got very interesting insights today, including, you should have co-founding members because it actually reduces your load. And then also how to deal with challenges and market capital, working capital. I mean, there are so many things, I cannot count them on my fingertips. The learnings are beyond that. We try to crunch it in, 30-minute slot. And so Sham, we keep the session just for 30 minutes so that everyone who is watching, they have something else to look forward to when we have session 2. We should not spill all the beans in session 1. So yeah, Sham, before I end this, I would really love to know any recommendation for people who are watching, maybe a book or series you are currently reading or watching. If you can, just what are you currently watching or reading?
I think so. I don't watch a lot. I read, obviously, different stages through you. Different books work in different stages of your entrepreneurship. Start with simple books. Then obviously you've got a lot of content as you go along. But I would say the starting point would be reading autobiographies of successful people. You start doing that, a lot of fundamentals and principles you'll start, because they talk about failures than success. And any startup founder should not focus on success but focus on failures. So learn what others have done as mistakes and don't repeat that. So I think reading those books makes a lot of sense. So I keep learning. You can, there are books about Alibaba founder, Amazon founder, uh, there's plenty of them, right? So depending on the kind of industry you are, you can pick up any one of those books. You've got Zero to One, these kind of books, which are very simple to read, right?
Shoe Dog.
But pardon me.
Shoe Dog by Phil Knight.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I think start simple. A lot of mistakes that people do, they take very complicated books, fat books that you're just not able to get through it, and then you drop it. You get into the habit of reading about people's experiences, because they teach you a lot more compared to reading about theories and solutions. Also, one thing, podcast. Obviously, there's so many podcasts that's there. There's one podcast which is run by Lightbox Ventures. I keep going back and listening to them. They've got a very healthy sort of stories. There's a Bitcoin alum. He currently runs the fund called as Arkham. His name is Mr. Rahul, and I think the kind of podcast he runs, it's not just about startups. It's about generally different themes about what people have done in different aspects of life. So I think it's good to hear about people's stories, and stories is what you're building, right? Essentially. And I think that's where you should get invested in.
Yeah, and thank you for those recommendation, the podcast and the books also. So Sham, I still have many questions to ask, and I still want to continue this conversation, but I think respecting the session time limit, we'll have session 2 soon. And it was really lovely to have you on the podcast today. And yeah, thank you for all the time you have given to this.
Thanks for having me over, Roshni.
Thank you.